thanks for coming. So my name is Lars, and I started with web development when I was 16, and I built the first website and got paid for it, and so that was the moment like, oh, this sounds nice, I can keep doing this. But more and more I realized that it's more fun to work within a team and to get stuff done together than coding by myself. And now I'm teaching organization management at a university and helping companies to improve the way they work and build their products. And I'm always eager to try new stuff about teamwork and how to work together. And so I'm happy to share with you a story of how we at a company in Cologne called Trusted Shops used mob programming to improve the way we work. So what's mob programming? This is a quote by Woody Zuhl. He's the so-called father of mob programming. And it's all the brilliant minds working on the same thing at the same time, in the same space, on the same computer. So this is, in essence, it's all about Agile. It's a cross-functional team that's working co-located and in a lean or agile fashion, but the only additional constraint is that's only one computer they're working on. But before I dive in now, could I get a bit of the feeling of the room? So who here calls himself developer, engineer, whatever? Okay. The rest, Agile coaches, Scrum Masters? Okay. Product owner, product manager, something like that? Or business? Ah, someone? It's good. You can stay here. Okay, this is a nice, diverse crowd. So who here has tried pair programming or seen it in a company? A couple more? Keep your hands up if you're doing it on a regular basis within your team. Oh, that's not so many. So who of you had heard of mob programming before this morning's keynote? A couple of you, okay. Any brave souls that tried this as at the team? There's two brave souls. Okay, so I hope I will have something for every one of you. So I will briefly start with a bit of context in where the team started. And then I will go into the first steps on how we introduced it and what's very important about when doing so. And I would not be here if I would not think that mob programming is a way worth trying. So I will talk about the benefits we saw and also the challenges, so both the good and the bad stuff about mob programming. And if you, after all of this, think, that's a good idea, let's try this at my company, I will talk a bit about the objections that you will face when you try to suggest this. So let's dive in. So the problem we were faced. At the company, it was a completely new team. So many new hires, and the rest was a mix from different departments. And also, all of them had different skill levels. And the biggest problem at the beginning was that with this team, the chance to bond really as a team was missed at the beginning. So they were lacking team building and so on at the beginning. And with this, of course, this team could never really work together as a one unit, as a team. And even though we had an agile coach, very passionate agile coach on that team, and we were collecting actionable items out of every retrospective and trying new things, somehow we were not able to really improve the way we worked. So then, almost a year ago, the YouTube addict in me found this talk of Woody Zuhl, where he explained mob programming. And that's the moment where I thought, oh, this is interesting. We should try this. And so I shared the video within our Slack channel and was evangelizing for the approach. And then, one morning, after we had an architectural discussion meeting, one of the team said, yeah, let's implement these changes as a mob. Let's try this. Okay, set, done. This was the first setup this morning, right after. After a couple of days, we improved the setup a bit, and it looked like this. And this is how another team last month was working. So, but now you see, like, yeah, people sitting together. What's important about mob programming? The most important thing about this, regardless of the team size, there's always one driver. So this one driver is controlling the computer that the team is working on. And the rest of the mob are navigators. So it's like in real life. The driver in a car is focused on all the stuff in front of him on the road and tries not to hit any pedestrians and so on. And the navigator is looking forward, like what's the next turn, like where we have to go, dealing with traffic and so on. And there's a common theme I see with teams that try pair programming, and maybe you have witnessed or experienced that as well, which I call the driver observer. So you have the pair who's on the keyboard, he's typing away, and the other pair is like leaning back, checking Facebook, while the other one is typing. Yeah, he knows what he's doing, yeah. And then he's looking back up at the screen, and what the fuck just happened? Where are we? Like, huh? And this is this driver observer. And this is like a typical anti-pattern with many pair programming teams I see. And so there's a mantra called strong pairing, which is by the guy called Levin Falco. He's a colleague of Woody Zuhl, or he was a colleague of Woody Zuhl. And he says, like, for an idea to go from someone's head into the computer, it should go first through someone else's hands. And so think about this. Who had or has awesome ideas at work? Like, hey, the rest is unemployed, or what? It's like, but what happens when you start talking about this idea? Like, I had so many situations where I felt so damn stupid when I talked about the idea because it doesn't make sense. And that's what this is all about. You talk before you think. And that's a good thing if you feel stupid, because this way you don't waste time implementing the stupid idea. Because otherwise you start with this and then later on you end up with, oh fuck, this doesn't work. And so, okay, this is a benefit you will get from pair programming as well. So let's talk a bit about the benefits you get when you do this as an entire team. So the first and biggest one, it's focus. Because when you think about this, when you're working as a team at only one laptop, you can only work at one thing at a time. And so this thing should be the most important thing right now. And if you're not doing that, you're wasting time, big time. And what's another big time waster when working? Anyone? Yeah. So most of the time, everyone hates meetings. But think about what are most meetings for when you're at work. It's about alignment. But we, with the teams that were mobbing, we had no longer planning meetings, backlog grooming, refinement, whatsoever. Why? Because it's easy. Everything was working on the same thing right then and there. So everybody know what everyone was doing. And when it was time for planning, planning was the most important thing at that time. And everyone was in the room already. So it just meant opening Jira and going through the backlog and got to work. And if you imagine days without meetings, then you will realize that this might feel like a hackathon. And who here has taken part in a hackathon? It's fun, right? Yeah. So I think so. But of course, work is work, and it's not a hackathon, because during work hours you have to do like stupid stuff. But what happens when you have to do these chores? You will sit there, maybe check Facebook or YouTube while doing it, or you will take more coffee breaks than usual, but you get your stuff done, right? This cannot happen if you work in the mob, because there's 5, 6 people sitting there, and there will be that one person that says, do we have to do this shit now? I don't want to do it again. And that's the point where either it's not important right now, so don't do it, or it's important. But then it's like all the problem-solving brains within our industry come to play. Because that's the moment where we think about, like, can we create a shell script or some other way to automate this stuff? And that's fun again, because it's an easy way to create a script and then afterwards say, like, yeah, we don't have to do this shit anymore. And with this comes another great benefit that was alluded in the keynote also. The entire team is always in learning mode, because you will learn new ways to code, new shortcuts, new tools, and maybe finally the team learns to use Vim correctly. And there's also, like, some of the stuff was taken away in the keynote already, but there's always this big problem that that expert within a team. So, but what happens when he's on vacation? Or worse? Like, you have a big, big fucking problem if the expert gets hit by a bus, or in a nice way, gets promoted, leaves the company, whatever. And within a mob, you share this knowledge all the time, because the team does everything together. So you learn how to deal with this legacy class, how to deploy it to production, how to handle this CSS wizardry. And the same thing is with new guys. Who was a newbie on a team once? I think everyone. So, did you have this onboarding checklist of stuff you want to have to learn, or to check out, or to do? I hate this shit. With the mob, it's not longer there, because you will start with the mob directly then and there at the important stuff. And the rest, like, we're all brilliant individuals who will learn and figure the stuff out on the way. But, of course, mob programming, it sounds easy and it sounds super like the silver bullet, but it's not. There are many challenges you will face when trying it, and many we stepped over. So let's talk about a couple of them. So the first thing is that the driver should only do the stuff that the navigators are telling them, or him or her. But for that, all navigators have to adjust to the skill level of the driver. Because think of it. Imagine you're a CSS wizard, and the current task, while you're the driver, is to style a component. What level of abstraction or instructions do you need? I think pretty basic, like make this beautiful, and it works. But when you're still at the driver's seat, and the next big important thing is to work at the Cobalt backend, like fucking you need different instructions. I can't even, like, I don't know how to declare a variable in Cobalt, so I would be lost. And therefore, all navigators have to adjust to the driver. And we had this when we fucked up big time with this. We had, on the first team, we also had an intern. So he, of course, did not know how to program. And some of us got really angry at him when he was the driver. So we're almost yelling at him that he did not know how to declare the variable in PHP. So this was not fun for anyone involved, and this is hard stuff. And the other thing, what's important and challenging, is you want to rotate the driver. But depending on your skill level and the task at hand, you want to be at the keyboard for longer or shorter periods of time. And both roles, both navigator and driver, can be challenging. So this is a fine balance to find, and it should be as short as possible. And the biggest thing is, never let the expert on the keyboard, because he will go like hack away, and you're in there's an entire mob in driver observer mode, and this does not help anybody. And to be able to combat all these challenges, there's one more thing, that you should get dedicated hardware. So this was the picture I showed you, like from the first setup. There, we were switching laptops entirely. So think about what you have to do. The driver has to unplug the TV, or disconnect from Apple TV, commit and push all the changes. And the next driver has to pull down all the changes, connect to the TV, open all the files again, and then you have stuff like entirely different editor theme, entirely different editor, the documentation you had open in the browser is missing, and so on. There's a mess of problems always. And so we were ending up at driver session that lasted half an hour or even longer. But if you think about, like, with a team of like 6 or 7 people, it might be the case that the driver is only the driver once per day, and this does not make sense, because then you don't care the rest of the time anymore. So what we did with the latest team, we had one dedicated MacBook, everything installed there, one editor we were always using, and everybody had his own keyboards, mice, trackpads. And with this setup, we were able to get down to 5 minutes per driver. And even that felt like an eternity. But to get all of this done in a perfect way, there's one thing you have to do always, like in every agile method, is that you have to keep a time box for almost everything. So for the driver sessions, we used an app that's called Mob Timer. So that blanks out your entire screen when it's time to switch drivers, so you're forced to switch. And for everything else, we had this time timer on the table in front of us, so for everything we were setting a time. Because I have no idea why, but like developers, they are annoyed by almost everything. But when it comes to discussing about stupid stuff, we're able to do this for like days on end. It's unbelievable. And with this comes another challenge. Because you have to make sure that you don't challenge ideas prematurely. Because it's tempting if you're one of the navigators and there's a suggested idea to say like, no, I have a better idea to do that. And then you will end up discussing the ideas way too much instead of just implementing and then going forward. So keep it stupid, simple is key there. Another challenge we faced was that we thought we will be able to do some tasks better alone. So we split up the mob. What ended up happening was that we missed some of the edge cases before in the discussion. And so we had 5 people wandering different directions. And so after 2 hours, we regrouped with the mob and started from 0 again. So it was a waste of time. The only way, or the only time we found feasible to like split the mob is when nobody has a clue what to do next. then it's best to do research on your own, because like reading and comprehending situations is best to do on your own pace. But with this comes a different challenge, and where we definitely still have many problems, or some teams decided like, no, mobbing is not for us. And that's like everyone needs personal space. Because think about the one annoying colleague you have. It's like in a meeting, oh, this guy again. And then you go back to your desk, put your headphones on, and like, I don't care. So, and it's the meeting next day that's bugging you again. But if you do work in the mob, so you're working the entire day with the same people in the same room, and you have to battle with this annoying coworker all the time, it's gonna be frustrating. And so there's the balance between like not splitting the mob, but maybe doing something without the mob. We did not find a perfect solution yet, and it depends on every team. There are teams that say like, oh, we don't care, we work perfectly together. For them, that's not a problem, but others, there might be a problem. And also, the company that I was working at was very flexible in work hours. And so therefore, it's like, yeah, I don't want to start at 7, like I will be in the office at 12. And how do you deal with that in a mob? So we tried different things. But the stupidest thing we tried was mob shifts. So like half of the team in the morning, half of the team in the afternoon. Because like over lunch, the handover was okay. But like, what are you doing for like night? You can introduce a night shift to always have a shift going, but we heard in the panel that should be not the case. So with this, what I can give you as a tip for that is to retrospect as often as possible. Because what we did is a short daily short retro each and every day. So just 15 minutes at the end of the day, and we're just collecting like stuff that worked well and stuff that did not work yet. And then come up with actionable items for the next day. And it's unbelievable how fast you will improve when you're doing retrospective that often. Because all the little small things will bubble up at the end of the day. If you do the retrospectives only every 2 weeks, all the small stuff is forgotten, but it's like with water. At some time, the bucket is full and everything drops over. So if you're now thinking that maybe mob programming would be a good idea, let me give you a bit of objections you will face, and some of the discussions I had the last couple of days already. So the biggest objections is always that somehow we're all still somehow influenced by like the work that Taylor and Ford did with their factory work. So the biggest one will always be like, what, is this effective? Or from managers like, what? It sounds like I'm paying 5 people to do the job of 1? Or stuff like, no, we have to paralyze to increase our velocity. Always a good thing to do, yeah. But think about, what are we doing most of the time at work? I hope you're not getting paid by lines of code, but you think about problems that you're challenging and work on them. And if you think about, like, what's your typical day when you're working alone, is that most of the time you will be waiting on different stuff. So you're waiting on the expert to ask him a question, or you're waiting on a pull request or a review of your pull request. But context switching is damn expensive, and nobody can multitask, not even women, sorry. The only thing they can do is context switch faster, so they have an advantage, but it takes us about like 20 minutes to get back into a context again. So when we're context switching the entire day, we're wasting really big time of the day. And let's look at these people. Why are they mobbing? Because complex problems are hard. And there will always be something coming up that no one had thought of before. And at that moment, you want all the hands on deck to make a decision quickly. And if you ever worked in operations or know people that work in operations, you might know this concept of a war room for critical production incidents. But why are we thinking that in critical situation it's good to work like that, but all the other time it's a bad idea? And I don't know why, but there's this notion of divide and conquer. I think everybody knows this. But somehow, we're the only industry where we're not dividing the problem and tackling small parts of the problem. No, we're dividing the team and tackle the problem that way. And to show you an example, this is Hunter Industries. This is the company where Woody Zuhl and colleagues introduced and worked on mob programming. And they're working like this for years, all day. So maybe this is the solution for you, or maybe not. But give it a try, and I'm happy to talk about all your experiences. And if you have questions, bring it. There was the first one.
So, what was the biggest amount that you applied this approach with?
Yeah. Or otherwise, I could repeat the question.
Sure. So, is this on? Yeah? Okay. So, my question is, what was the biggest crowd that you applied this approach with? And how successful?
Yeah. The biggest crowd we worked with was almost 12 people. And there are rumors that there are also bigger mobs. I never encountered that, but it's always a problem like how do you deal with everything? So if you ever think or ever joined like a coding dojo, then essentially you're also doing more programming with even more people. And so it's all about like setting up the environment correctly and having the right mindset. Then I think it can also work with a bit bigger ones, but it's the same question with like how big should an agile team be? Like there's a reason why there's this 2 pizza rule stuff. So you need all the experts in the room, and however many that will be, this should be working. Yeah, can you pass the mic?
Sure.
Yeah, climb over. Like.
Can you tell us the difference between pair programming and mob programming? It seems to me mob programming is scaled up pair programming.
It's like 2 is a pair, 3 is a mob. So it's just like more people.
That's the only difference?
In generally, yes. So especially like you're doing with the whole team. So it's not just like 3 people, then you're doing mob programming. It's the entire team. Because if you have like a team of 6 people and you're doing 2 mobs with 3 people, then it's not helping because you always still have the overhead of like communication, alignment, what are you working on.
Any best practice? How many people can be involved in one team? 12 is, it seems to me, too much.
Yeah.
You will be driver in, let's say, more than 1 hour. Next turn.
Depending on how you get it done. There's a talk by the guy Levan Falco I mentioned within my talk, and he did this on stage and with 2-minute driver's time.
Are you talking? Sharing your thoughts with the team?
Huh? What?
The driver is talking with
the driver
loudly thinking or what?
It depends on how big the team is, how good they work together. So in general, it should be that the navigator is talking and the driver is doing what the navigator is telling. So, and it's common sense again, like when you're in the car and you're the driver and your navigator says like, run out of this bridge into the river. You say like, no, why? So there should be common sense to say like, stop, this is stupid. But in generally, it's the navigators that tell the driver what to do. And yeah, and depending on how mature the team is with all this, it's a good idea to begin with also rotating the main navigator, because otherwise there's like 5 people talking and you get confused. But when everybody is has a bit of experience navigating, then it will be able to like not just rotating the driver. More questions? What do you mean to like time needed?
Average amount of time needed for the team
Mm-hmm.
to adapt to mob programming from scratch.
There's not really actually like time needed, because it's not like you do a workshop for like 3 weeks and afterwards they can do mob programming. It's like when everybody knows like you need an introductory session, like hour maybe, to explain this and set up a bit of ground rules on how the team would work. But afterwards, they work on the same stuff that they were working before, just as a team. And with all the teams that we were working with, we did not see a really decrease in productivity. It's like they work the same way, and maybe there's a bit more like stuff to figure out at the beginning, but there's not much time to like.
How do you mitigate the problem of silos?
So, sorry, because we don't have the mic. How do you mitigate the silos? So, in a mob, it's easy because there is no silo anymore. It's not the silo is the problem. Like, you have that one part of the code, like this legacy class, and everyone is like this is like poison code. Like no one wants to touch that. But in a mob, everyone has to touch it. And even if you don't have, if you're not the expert in something, you will start learning. And that's what we're all referring to as like these T-shaped people. You have like, or T-shaped skills. You have that one expertise where really deep knowledge, but everything else you have a bit of knowledge. And with that, all these bits of knowledge combined together from one team makes up for the expert. Because of course they're not as fast as the expert, but as we have heard in the keynote, it's not about fast, but working. Like there's.
What happened if driver doesn't know how to implement specific piece of code? Do navigators help him with instructions, type this and type that? Or it's situation, please move a bit to show you how to do that?
Never do this like where the expert is going in and like pushing, let me do this.
Yeah.
Never. Because this is like what I showed with the expert.
Mm-hmm.
You don't learn that way.
So navigator navigates the driver how to do that.
Yeah, and that's what the first challenge I mentioned. Like, you have to adjust to the driver then. So when he does not know the programming language, and we had non-programmers in our mob, so like the product owner and other people from UX and so on, say they did not know how to program. They were in the driver's seat also. But then you have to adjust and start on a different level.
Thanks.
Well, when you have experienced driver,
Yeah.
I don't know why is the reason that driver cannot respond to navigation. Because if you have like apprentice navigator and you want to write good code that takes years of experience to do, why wouldn't driver tell, oh, that's a bad idea, and that navigator will learn from that feedback of driver?
Because the best way to learn is to make mistakes. And so a driver session should be short. So even when it's the intern, the apprentice, whatever, it's some unexperienced or not a developer, when he's talking about that and realizing that this was a stupid idea, then you learn better, because otherwise, like, when you directly give this feedback, it's like, okay, I don't talk about this next time, like, or I don't put suggestions in. So because the driver is off in a couple of minutes anyways, it's okay, because then he can chime in again.
Yeah, it's really important to switch often.
Yeah, definitely. Like especially like what we did with the setup, where everyone has a keyboard. When there was that one expert and said, "Oh, I know what to do now," it's like, okay, someone else take over, and then he was explaining. It's always this strong pairing mantra: explain, and someone else types. More questions? There's one. Sure.
Hi.
Yep.
So my question is, you already mentioned that context switching is a big issue when you are working alone, and when someone comes along and just asks you something. So my question actually is, in your experience, how much of a speed boost in a project did you find working with a mob? Rather than having, let's say, 3 people in an office, everyone is working their own project, and just when they find a bump in a road, they just ask their colleagues in the office to do a quick brainstorm session.
As we have heard in the keynote this morning, it's not about speed. Because in the mob, there's an engineering manager from New Relic, like the company you may have heard of. They are doing mobbing also extensively. And they say they don't see a decrease in speed with mobs. But it's not an improvement. But it's not about the speed, because what you get with the mob is that you don't put the stupid ideas in your code. And you will always have stupid ideas. So I don't want to offend you, but don't get me started on my stupid ideas. So, but the problem is, like, we have this notion, like we do a pull request and someone else looks over this, and then he will find stuff that I missed. But there's a study from Atlassian, so the company that builds Jira and so on, that they did on the length of pull requests. So the longer it is, the less time you spend per line on the pull request. So there's much stuff that will be missed. But in a mob, there's like 5, 6 pair of eyes on that code directly. And you will realize more and more stuff. Because also then someone says, like, we're doing the same stuff in that other class. We should maybe start refactoring or something like that. And it's about the quality. You get much, much higher quality within a mob. And there's not that much speed decrease because of all the overhead you have to do otherwise. Because what you said was, like, when I have a speed bump in my thought process, I gather the team and talk about this, like, in a short brainstorming session. What did you do exactly? You removed every one of your colleagues from their context. And they have to get into your context. So you have to explain your problem. They have to come up with ideas, and afterwards they have to get back into their context. And that's what the context switching is about. So therefore, in my opinion, and some others are thinking the same, this is better in a mob.
Thank you.
What's the name of the app you said you used?
Yeah. So what was the name of the app we used? So it's called Mob Timer. Yeah, sorry. It's called Mob Timer. I'm not sure, it was some learning company that, Pluralsight, there, thanks. They created this, it's open source on GitHub, and it's working on Windows, Mac, and it's an Electron app. And this is helping because you get like a white screen of text, like now Lars is up as a driver, and you can put everyone in and skip and so on. More questions? Yes?
Hi.
Hi.
So what about various people have various needs. For example, someone is hungry, someone needs to go to bathroom, someone has a problem and needs to go out for 2 hours, and stuff like that.
Yep.
How do you handle that in a
Yeah.
mob?
That's exactly what I mentioned, like with this personal space. And it's hard. So what we did, we decided as a team together when we start and when we stop. And we did lunch break together. Or at least we had the same time slot. So we're not always lunching together, but same time slot. And with the small stuff, at the beginning we tried different approaches. We tried something called Pomodoro Timers. So it's like you work for 25 minutes, and then you take 5 minutes of a break, do this for a couple of cycles, bigger break. We tried this, worked with a couple of teams, but with another team, with a more mature, like they worked better, we just said, if you're not the driver right now, or the next driver, do whatever you want. Like go out, get your coffee, come back in, and it's because we're all working on the same thing and you can watch what's going on, you don't need like time to get into this context again. So we just say like, take your cigarette break, get coffee. If you need to get out for a walk, it works. But that's also something that comes up with a retro a lot then. Because if there's one person that always takes like too many coffee breaks, then it's like, nah, let's talk about this. And that's also like the good thing that happened within a mob. Like with all the agile practices, what they are about is like the stuff we don't know how to do, we try to do that as often as possible. Like continuous delivery. Like we're trying to like decrease the time always, like about a quarter, weeks, daily, every couple of minutes. And when we increase this, then we realize all the other problems. And it's the same with the mob. But of course, that's the hard part. Like we had this discussion in the panel also, like this is also, everything is then people skills. Like how to work with your colleague, give it the right feedback, like criticize in a good way and so on. Like this is hard, and we had 2 teammates, they were almost hitting each other at one time, but afterwards, it was awesome, like it's better then. So sometimes there needs to be a fight, and then it happens, but it's depending on the team. Like, just do retrospectives, figure out what worked for the team and not, and then try improving on that. More questions? Question? Yeah. So I think we're also almost done. So thank you very much. I will be here today and tomorrow, so if you have ever more questions or want to talk about this, come find me.